The ancient American Indians, who originated in North America thousands of years ago, spread out across the continent. While each American Indian group was different, people in the same area often shared ways of doing things. Experts call these culture areas. Possible origins of other North American Indians. The Inuit, who continue to live in Alaska and Canada, may have been the last of the ancient people to arrive in North America nearly 4,000 years ago. Some scientists think they sailed by boat in the Pacific Ocean. Others believe they traveled across the ice fields that once linked North America and Europe. The Inuit settled in the icy far north and adapted to the cold. They kept warm and dry in the water in kayaks or canoes with watertight coverings. On land, they rode dog sleds. They used harpoons, spears attached to long ropes, to hunt seals and whales. They also hunted caribou, walrus, and fish. The center of Inuit culture was the family. They shared the food they hunted. They built winter homes called igloos from blocks of snow. In summer, people lived in animal skin tents. 1. Outline modern-day Texas on the map. Identify the culture areas found there. Mound builders. Far to the south of the Inuit in a region around the Mississippi River, an American Indian group had a comparatively different way of life before European exploration. They began to build mounds. Once, they had been simple hunters and fishers, growing a few plants. The mound builders, as we call them today, were known for their huge earthen structures. Building huge earthen structures took skill and organization. It is likely that leaders directed many workers at a time. Some of the mounds they built served as graves. Others served as temples. The largest community, the city of Cahokia, may have had 20,000 people. Farmers grew maize, or corn, to support the people. Cahokia served as a marketplace for trade. People could get shells from distant places, or special stones for making tools. The mound builders traded for goods and resources throughout much of North America. Puebloans. About 2,000 years ago, groups of hunter-gatherers in the Southwest began to farm corn. They lived in the dry canyon country of what is today Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah. The early Puebloans wove baskets and lived in caves or pits. Over time, they began to grow beans and raise turkeys for food. They built small dams to provide water for their crops. They still hunted game and gathered wild plants for food, but farming grew in importance. They also mastered the art of making pottery. Some of the Puebloan communities grew very large. Using stone or clay for bricks, people built multi-story apartments tucked into the overhanging canyon cliffs. At Mesa Verde in Colorado, villages might have more than 150 rooms. People farmed the mesa tops. In Chaco Canyon in New Mexico, the Puebloans built villages out in the open. Some buildings soared 5 stories high. Agriculture was difficult in the harsh desert of Chaco Canyon. To get the things they needed and wanted, the people traded. Chaco became an important center of long-distance trade. Trade routes reached from Chaco to Mexico and the Gulf of California. Chert and obsidian, used to make tools such as points, knives, and scrapers, were common imports. An import is a product brought from a different place to trade or sell. Traders also brought in turquoise, used to make beads and to decorate objects. Shells came from the seacoasts. Macaws from distant jungles were kept for their feathers. Pueblo Indians are thought to be the modern descendants of these ancient people. Mayan and Aztec worlds. Great civilizations arose throughout the Americas. A civilization is a highly developed human society. In Central America, the Maya cleared the jungle and planted squash, beans, and corn. With plenty of food, they began to build centers to hold religious ceremonies. The centers became cities. Over time, the Maya developed an empire. An empire is a group of countries under the control of one ruler. Mayan cities consisted of stone temples, pyramids, palaces, plazas, and courts for playing ball. Skilled artists turned clay into pottery, made jewelry, and wove fabric for clothing. Most people lived in wood and thatch houses. The people developed a writing system. By watching the sky carefully, they created accurate calendars. They also had an advanced system of mathematics. Although the great cities tumbled into ruin more than 1,000 years ago, the Maya people still remain. Today there are more than 1 million people in Central America who speak Mayan languages. About the time that the Maya civilization declined, the Aztec Empire arose in what is now Mexico. They migrated south until they reached Lake Texcoco. They were skilled farmers and used irrigation to bring water to dry fields. They grew crops on man-made islands in swamps. By 1325, they had begun to build their great city, Tenochtitlan, on an island in the lake. Stone temples soared high above great plazas, canals, and markets. Perhaps as many as 400,000 people lived there by the early 1500s. The Aztecs ruled a large territory in central Mexico. They made allies of their trading partners. They fought and conquered enemies. They grew wealthy and powerful, ruling over many other Indian groups from whom they demanded gifts. Nearly 6 million people were under Aztec control when Spanish explorers arrived in 1519. In 1521, the Aztec Empire ended. Today, Mexico City lies atop the ruins of Tenochtitlan. Descendants of the Aztecs still live in Mexico.